Greetings, beautiful souls. It's your favorite author, Lisa Walker McCray, back with another spellbinding story time from the pages of my novel, A Peculiar Kind of Love. Remember, you guys, this video is for entertainment purposes only. First and foremost, big praise to the Most High Yah, and to you all that are still chiming in, much love and respect from this way. Okay, it's time to tap into those imaginations and turn some pages. So how about it, Chauncey? Why don't you set the stage? Okay, beautiful souls, quick recap to get those imaginations primed and ready. In our last reading, Drew finally got information on our mystery lady who turned out to be Mrs. Leah Reynolds, owner of Simple Designs, a home design agency out of Shiloh City. Now, Leah was impressed by Drew's work on the Victorian home and offered her a job. Of course, Drew rejected the offer, informing Leah that she was going to run the B&B full-time herself. Baby, our girl was not interested in punching anyone's time clock. Now, unfortunately, this is all we have on Leah, but hopefully in the near future we'll find out more. Until then, we'll just keep her stored in our mental, just like the phone call Dean ignored and seemed to be agitated with. Speaking of Dean, we found out she has some self-esteem issues when it comes to Drew and Chantel. Dean feels she's just not vibrant as they are, or in Chantel's case was. Anyway, she's questioning herself and Jay if she's good enough. Of course, Jay tried to encourage Dean and hopes she would nip this nonsense in the bud. So let's just hope his encouragement put her on a path of believing in self more. Because just like Jay said, she was also beautiful and successful. Y'all know what gets me? There are actually people out here looking up to others that seem to have it all together. But for that person, they feel they're less than or not good enough. It's crazy, but it's true. Anywho, let's get into this story time. We catch up with Drew at the B&B, preparing the Paris room for its next guest. The OJ's Forever Mine played through the home. Drew's soul was content and her spirits high. She'd been running the B&B for almost 2 months and business was booming. Drew was on her 20th booking since her opening in May. Drew was lost in her chores and the music. Casting the bedspread over the bed, the sweet essence of the Gaines lavender scent gave her an aromatherapy of peace and relaxation. The guest buzzer suddenly chimed from the intercom, summoning Drew's attention. She looked up at the Eiffel Tower clock above the door. "They're early," she said to self. Drew hurried to complete the bed and put fresh towels out before the buzzer sounded again. "Yah, give me strength," she muttered, hurrying to complete her task. Afterwards, Drew hurried downstairs, thinking to self how she needed to get some help. Being the check-in clerk, cook, bellhop, and maid was becoming exhausting. Besides, business was going good enough to take on a small staff, and with the 4th of July right around the corner, Drew definitely had to do something fast. By the time Drew made it downstairs, she was out of breath. Checking her image in the foyer's mirror, she noticed she was still wearing her headscarf, so she hurried to take it off, throwing it behind the check-in desk. Drew took another quick look in the mirror. She straightened her hair, then dusted herself off, at the same time slapping on a smile while trying to catch her breath. Drew opened the door right as the buzzer sounded. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Fillmore," she greeted. The Fillmores looked at each other, then back at Drew. Their faces questioned why she was out of breath. "Did we come at an awkward time?" the missus asked. Drew laughed, assuring they were right on time. She welcomed them in. After checking the Fillmores in, Drew grabbed their bags and escorted them upstairs to their room. Mrs. Fillmore's eyes lit up when Drew opened the door. "Oh, Larry, look at this room," the country in her yelped out. Mrs. Fillmore absolutely loved the room. She kept slapping Mr. Fillmore on the shoulder every time she saw something she liked. Drew chuckled to self. She could tell Mr. Fillmore was trying to be patient because he was going to town on some gum he chewed. "Stop chewing that gum like that, Larry." Mrs. Fillmore slapped his shoulder again, laughing out. Mr. Fillmore side-eyed his wife. "Now look here, Betty, you got one more." Before Larry could finish his sentence, Betty was lying in the bay window, hugging the plush pillows, pretending she was in Paris. Oui, in Paris, Larry," she yelped out, accompanied by a burst of laughter. Mr. Fillmore eyed Drew. He started chewing his gum even faster. Drew didn't know what to say, but her insides laughed without pause. "I'm glad you liked the room, Mrs. Fillmore," she stated, gathering the Fillmore's bag, setting it on the chase lounger. At the same time, bear hugging the laugh that tried so hard to get loose. Mrs. Fillmore declared she absolutely loved the room, and it was everything the brochure said it would be. "Isn't it, Larry? Don't you just love it?" Mrs. Fillmore slapped Mr. Fillmore's shoulder again. Drew looked over at Larry. He was going to work on his gum. She chuckled. It was time for her to allow the Fillmores to settle in before she embarrassed herself. "Thank you so much for booking. I'll leave you guys to settle in." See, the Fillmores sound like a handful. Well, Betty anyway. And somebody please get Larry a new stick of gum. The one he's got has lost its flavor. Anywho, it's a couple of hours later and Drew stood at the front desk watching Larry and Betty enjoy the pool. She imagined Betty slapping Larry's wet back and cringed. Drew shook her head. She kind of felt sorry for the poor fella, not knowing when he'd get slapped across the back. Drew started to laugh, recalling she'd seen Larry dodge one of those slaps a few times while showing them the room. Drew laughed even more when suddenly the foyer doors opened, breaking her daydream. In jumped Gabe. Drew was shocked and thrilled to see him, being that Gabe had been in Atlanta with Lorraine a few weeks, and Drew was just about to miss him. If y'all forget, Lorraine is Gabe's grandmother, Chantel's mother. Yeah. Anyway, moving forward, Drew embraced Gabe, smothering him with kisses. "Hey, Beetle, did you have fun?" she asked. With excitement, Gabe assured he had the time of his life, telling Drew all the exciting things he'd done. He then handed Drew a brown paper bag. "Auntie Drew, look at what I got." Drew proceeded to open the bag. Lorraine warned her not to, but it was too late. Drew threw the bag at Gabe and took off running and screaming. Gabe was rolling on the floor, laughing hysterically. "I told you Grandma Auntie Drew was scared of lizards." Drew was now shaking her hair out, cringing with goosebumps. "Ew, ew, ew," she repeated. Lorraine observed with fingers pressed to her lips. She wanted to laugh so bad but held back. "Are you okay?" she asked, batting her eyes, trying to suppress the laughter. Drew calmed herself. "I'm gonna kill you," she said, running after Gabe, chasing him around the house. Lorraine was now laughing uncontrollably at the game of cat and mouse. By this time, Carl walked in, observing the chase and Lorraine enjoying the entertainment. Clearing his throat, Carl hollered out, "Excuse me, am I interrupting?" Lorraine looked back at Carl standing in the doorway like he owned the place. She tried to explain but couldn't get it out because she laughed so hard. "What a beautiful laugh. Hello, my name is Carl." He walked over, extending his hand. Lorraine took Carl's hand. "Hello, Carl." He gently placed a kiss upon it. Lorraine complimented how chivalrous he was, then introduced herself as Gabe's grandmother. Carl eyed Lorraine, assuring she looked nothing like a grandmother. Lorraine thanked him, adding that she was flattered. Carl placed another kiss on Lorraine's hand, admitting he was not trying to flatter her, but woo her. Lorraine laughed, taking her hand back. There it is again, that unique laugh. Carl introduced himself as Drew's father. "Oh, so you're Carl," Lorraine stated. Carl's face held a puzzled look. He told Lorraine she said that as though he'd been discussed. Lorraine assured Carl he'd most definitely been talked about, informing him Gabe spoke highly of him and vowed to also become a sergeant when he grew up. The pair laughed at Gabe's innocence. Carl was intrigued by Lorraine, complimenting her laugh once again. He told her it was peculiar in its own way. Gabe and Drew were still going at it when Gabe noticed Carl. "Sarge!" he yelled out, running over to Carl. He greeted with an honorable salute. Gabe was excited to stand before Carl at attention. Carl returned the gesture. "At ease, soldier." Lorraine smiled. She was simply taken in by them both. She could tell Carl had a significant impact on Gabe's life. Gabe opened the brown bag to show Carl his lizard. Then he dashed off to the playroom. By this time, Drew had finally gained her composure, so she stood back a moment and watched Carl and Lorraine talk amongst themselves. Drew could clearly see Carl was taken in by Lorraine, and as much as she loved the idea, Drew had to let it go, and so did Carl. The 3 years she'd gotten to know her father, Drew had never seen him serious about anyone. Carl took eligible bachelor to a whole new level. He was quite a ladies' man. "Daddy, what are you doing here?" Drew greeted him with a kiss. "And why are you dressed like that?" Her face held a quizzical stare. Carl had on everything Stetson, from his cowboy hat to his boots and spurs. "Wow, Dad, all black? Like, who are you supposed to be, the villain in the story?" Drew chuckled. Carl looked at her in shock. He couldn't believe Drew was cracking jokes about his attire. Grabbing at his vest, Carl strutted around like a peacock. "I look good," he stated. Carl then noticed Lorraine found his peacock strut a little humorous. "Pretty lady, when I said you had a beautiful laugh, now that didn't necessarily mean you could laugh at me." Lorraine gave Carl a gentle smile, trying to contain her laughter. Carl then proclaimed to Drew that he was a rancher now and needed to dress the part in order to get the entire experience. Carl then tipped his hat to the ladies. Carl a trip. Drew shook her head, stating sarcastically that he would also have to do the work in order to get the experience. The women laughed. Defending himself, Carl expressed to Drew that he was no stranger to hard work and was raised on a farm. Eyeing her father, Drew was like, "Dad, please, we both know you're not getting your hands dirty and you probably already hired someone to do the job." Carl side-eyed Drew. "I dare you, I'm a very hands-on type of guy." Carl then leered at Lorraine, tugging at his oversized belt buckle. Drew jumped between the two, assuring Lorraine he had workers. Lorraine chuckled, grabbing her things from the counter. "Well, good people, I have to dash. Kiss Gabe for me." Lorraine headed for the door. Drew noticed the eye exchange between the two. Carl paused Lorraine's steps, asking if he could walk her out. Lorraine didn't contest, she allowed it. Carl took her hand, guiding her out the door. Drew wanted to stop Carl's shenanigans right then and there, but she would at least allow him to be a gentleman and walk Lorraine out. Well, looks like we got some action. Where will this go, if it goes anywhere? Because we understand Drew is against this. But will Carl understand without offense? I guess y'all will just have to meet me back here to find out. Imagination Station awaits you. Until then, remember this: the axe forgets what the tree remembers. Watch what you do to people because they don't forget in most cases. Y'all bless this reading and yourselves. Smooches!